Hi, welcome to Step by Step Christian School. Today we are going to be learning about classroom management and discipline and guidance training. Welcome aboard, whether you are a new time hire or you've been here for many years. I appreciate you watching and joining in with us. First, I want to talk about really what we're going to be learning about and why we're going to be learning it. The Bible says in Proverbs 29:17 that we should discipline your son and he will give you rest. He will give delight to your heart. What does that mean? Wow, if we do the work, if we discipline, if we guide our children and we put in that hard work, then that promise is that he will give your heart delight. I think we've all been in situations where our children have done the opposite of that, right? And they've given us strife and heartache, and it's been hard. I know I have 3 boys, and there's many a time where it hasn't been restful, giving rest and delight to your heart. And so, but I'm praying that if I do a good job, and if we do a good job here at Step by Step in training these children in the way they shall go, that when they are old, they will not depart from it. So, first I want to talk to you too about what it means to have discipline and guidance. When you look at this slide right here, then it shows a river, a raging river, I would describe it as. I don't know what other adjectives you might think of when you see this example, but I see rocks and white waters and rapids and turmoil, and in this I think about discipline and guidance in this analogy. When I look at the rocks and the river and the waters, which is often like what happens when a child goes into throwing a fit or is having trouble regulating their emotions, then oftentimes it gets messy. It gets raging, just like this river here. I want you to take a second and to kind of notice the rocks in the river. The rocks in the river are stable. They are consistent. I would also describe them as they're wet. They get down and they're down in the river. And what we are called to be is to be that rock, to be down on their level, to be to get wet with them, that while they are storming and raging through, that we are supposed to be calm and stable and firm, and all of the things that Christ is for us. Psalms 18:2 says, "The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer, my God, my rock, in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold." And when we're called to be Christ-like, then he models that discipline and guidance and what we're giving to these children and what we should be doing during these times of strife and turmoil. They're also learning opportunities, right? Is that we give them the opportunity to learn from their mistakes. As Ms. Green said, a former head of schools, then she said, we need to learn from our mistakes. If we're making the same mistakes over and over again, it's okay to make mistakes as long as we learn from them and we grow from them and then we make new ones. The same thing happens with these children, is they're going to make 1,000 mistakes every single day. I don't expect them to be Jesus because I've never enrolled Jesus. Never hired Jesus either, but they're not going to be perfect. They're going to make mistakes, and we want to teach them how to learn and how to grow and to do better and to hopefully make different and new mistakes next time. So I want you to kind of visualize this example, and we'll bring it back through the trainings and kind of reference that. But when you're in the middle of a child throwing a fit or doing something, imagine being the rock, just like Psalms 18:2 says, "Where the Lord is my rock, in whom I take refuge." That's what these children are depending on you for, and it's our job to have that Christ-like love for them and to model that for them. All right, so the next slide I'm going to show you is about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And really, whenever we talk about moving on to that higher education and the things that we have so many hours of training on for our curriculum and getting into circle time and subtraction and all of the math and the science and teaching them to read and opposites and rhymings and go-togethers and all of that great stuff, that's all wonderful, but that's on the very, very top of this pyramid, as you can see. If we haven't met their basic needs, then all of that's icing on the cake. We don't get to any of that. And so the most important thing is the base of this pyramid, which is the physiological needs. That includes nutrition, water, air, sleep, shelter, clothing, temperature control, and reproduction. Obviously, at a child level, that one's off the table. But when we look into these other pieces, if we look at children, for instance, that are abused and neglected, they're not really able to go on to higher level thinking and to be able to learn all these complex things, even if they're complex for a 4-year-old. When I think of this, I think about, okay, if I were trying to do my taxes, for instance, on a table filled with frogs, because I am terrified of frogs. I'm terrified of frogs, and so let's say there's a table full of frogs and I'm trying to do my taxes. That's not an environment that I could think where I could concentrate, where I could do my best work, right? I wouldn't be able to do that because my basic needs, I have a fear right there that it's not being met. So my higher level of thinking isn't going to work. You can probably think of 1,000 times within your life where things like that have happened. Maybe you were under stress or turmoil or something like that, and you weren't able to use your best brain, right? Next comes security. Security would be stability, predictability, protection, freedom from fear, structure, order, law, limits. I guess really that frog example would really fall under these safety needs, and the physiological needs would definitely be more of making sure that they had enough to eat, if they're starving to death, if they have they don't have water, they don't have air, if you're getting CPR and you can't breathe, then you're not going to be able to do circle time. The next level up would be social needs. They need to learn giving and receiving affection, intimacy, friendship, tenderness, affiliation, love, and belongingness. When we talk about this, I will break this down a little bit further in this presentation and talk to you a little bit about forming these relationships with these children and making sure that their social needs are met. Because if they don't feel like you love them, then it doesn't really matter if they disappoint you. It's going to be important that you have a connection with each of these children for them to feel like they want to do their best. They need to feel like they belong. Maybe have you ever thought of a situation maybe where you went in and you felt like you didn't belong? You felt like you were the odd man out. Maybe you went to a party and you didn't know anybody, and maybe you felt like somebody was talking about you, or you felt like you didn't, like everybody was looking at you or something like that. When you don't feel like you belong, then you're not able to move on to that top category. The next one is self-esteem. Positive self-esteem and evaluation, dignity, achievement, mastery, competence, independence, reputation, and prestige. This is important what we tell the children, because they become who they believe that they are. If they say in their head that they are the bad kid, then they will become the bad kid. If we tell them that if they believe that they are the stupid kid, if they believe that they're the ones that always get in trouble, that becomes part of their identity. That becomes part of their self-esteem. That becomes part of their internal dialogue. And it's a self fulfilling prophecy, really, is because what they say to themselves is who they typically become. So we want to plant those that self-esteem of telling them the things that they are and the things that we see in them. A lot of times with discipline and guidance, when I have a kid that has done something wrong, the first thing I do is I tell them everything that I know them to be. I know that you are smart. I know that you're kind. I've seen you to use your hands just yesterday to help your teacher to pass out snacks. I've seen you to use those hands to pray to God. I've seen you use your hands to pick up things when it wasn't even you who dropped them. I've seen you do all of these wonderful things with your hands. And today when I heard that you hurt somebody else with those hands, that really disappointed me, because I know that you can do all of these wonderful things with your hands, and instead you chose not to. And so building them up and telling them all of the good things about them, and then saying, okay, but this item disappointed me, can help to make a big difference. A lot of times when I have that conversation and in the discipline and guidance moment, I sit there and I talk to them about who they are and what I've seen out of them and all of the great qualities. That's most of the time where I'll see the toughest kids start cracking and shed a tear and trying to hold that back, because they might not be used to hearing that they're good, that I see that in them, and that I expect better out of them. So building them up, which kind of might seem opposite of what you would naturally go to, but it really does work for them to realize that, hey, I do have all of those qualities, and I can use my hands or maybe my words to build somebody up rather than break them down. And then finally, we get to the top of the tier. The top of the tier would be this education part, this self-actualization needs, including self-fulfillment, growth, unity, understanding, beauty, morality, transcendence, exploration, play. All of your higher level thinking, that academics being able to be the top of the class in the reading, that comes at the top of the pyramid, which means we have to meet every other part of that before we get there. So we're going to talk a little bit more about building that base of that pyramid today. All right, so a child has 7 basic needs, and most times that they act out, it's in response to one of their needs not being met. When we look at that, they have, just like on the last pyramid that I showed you, they have a need to belong. They need to feel like they fit in, that they have a space. That's why in our classroom prep, on that list that you'll go through to set up your classroom, the child's name has to be in so many places throughout the classroom. It has to be on your outside bulletin board. It has to be on your information board. It has to be on their file folders. It has to be on their desk. It has to be on the good work board. I'm probably forgetting some, but it has to, on their hook, right? On their cubby. All of those places we require the child's name to be. Why is that? Because they need to feel like they belong. They need to feel like they have a space and that is their home, and that they belong there, and it was intentional and we welcomed them. And so that's part of that feeling of belonging, but there's so much more in that. Making sure that a child that maybe feels like the outcast or feels new or maybe feels is typically shy, that you do purposeful things to make them feel included and to belong. They need to be taught a skill. You'll hear this so many times with 3, 4-year-olds, even 2-year-olds. I do it myself. I do it myself. I do it myself. And they need to be taught a skill, and they need to learn, and they want to be self-sufficient, right? But we know that so many times that they're not. So they want to feel successful, just like we do, right? We want to feel successful. They need to feel loved. They need to be loved by you every single day. And if in your heart you think, oh, here's this child again, they feel that. You don't have to say it. They need to feel loved. And you need to check yourself and your heart if that's how you feel when you get frustrated. We all get frustrated at certain points of time, and that's usually a moment where it's like, okay, I need to take a break out of this classroom. I need to call for a potty break. I need a mental just 5 minutes, right? Even in infant and baby classrooms, I need 5 minutes without the screaming, without the crying, because I see myself getting frustrated. As a mom too, taking that second instead of losing it in that moment, which I'm guilty of 1,000 times, to say, hey, I just need a minute. It's also a good modeling technique for our kids to teach them, hey, I need 5 minutes, I need a second so I can control myself and take a deep breath. That would be great if these kiddos did the same thing. If they took a minute and they took a big deep breath and they calmed themselves out before they reacted to maybe somebody knocking over their block tower, right? Instead of just clocking them upside the head with a block, to take a second and to control their emotions. So modeling that and saying, hey, I need a second, I need a minute because I'm frustrated, giving words to your feelings, that's a great thing. And then coming back and being able to talk to them. Throughout it all, though, they need to feel genuinely loved. Every day when they come into your classroom, you need to look at them, you need to acknowledge them, you need to say, hi, I'm so happy that you're here. And you need to give them hugs, you need to give them high fives. We need to let them know that they are known and they are seen. We need to check on them when they are out. They need to know that they're an important part of our classrooms and our lives, and they make a difference. They need to feel valuable and powerful. So in this then, how do we make a 3-year-old feel powerful? They need choices when there is a choice, because so much of their world is not their choice, right? They go to the grocery store, they go to school, they get up when they get dressed just how mom and dad tell them to. They don't get to decide anything. But they need to learn how to make choices, and they need to feel that powerful. So that could be just as simple as, hey, do you want the red scissors or the blue scissors? We're fixing to do a cutting project. Which one would you like? That gives them power. Now we shouldn't ask, what color would you like? Because I don't have every single color scissors, let's say. Giving them a choice in between two. I know this is very important to teach at this preschool early childhood education. You might know some people, I know specifically my husband, who has a very difficult time making decisions. When you say, where should we go out to eat? I don't know. And I think maybe his early childhood educational teachers maybe didn't give him the choice in between the red scissors and the blue scissors. And had they done that, maybe he could decide on where he would like to eat dinner. But all of those things will build on and help them to become successful adults and to be able to make decisions. So let them feel powerful when there is a choice. Give them choices. The next thing is they need to experiment and explore. This kind of goes with that needing to be taught a new skill. To experiment and explore, they need to be able to guess what might happen, to have a hypothesis and then test it and then see if what happens actually, what they thought was going to happen actually happens. They need to play. They need to see how things work. And they have to do that by getting in there and by touching it and by doing it and seeing what happens. They have a need to be respected. Just like we have a need to be respected, they have a need to be respected. And so when it comes to that, it would be same thing as really modeling that behavior. I'm going to treat you the way that I expect you to treat me. And I treat you with respect, and I don't yell at you, scream at you, belittle you, and I expect the same thing, because most of the time their actions are just mimicking exactly what they've seen and exactly how they've been treated. So be sure to model that. And then, of course, they have their physical needs. Some fits might be because I'm exhausted. They might be tired. They might be cold. They might be hungry, right? All of those physical needs can result in behavior problems. Behavior is a tool to meet one of these needs. And when you kind of break it down and you think about which need are they expressing, then that can help you to more successfully deal with maybe a behavior problem. or a fit or a tantrum or an explosion or maybe a social argument between two other children. If you can think about, okay, they really need to feel like they belong, and so they're frustrated in making this friend, and so now, and they don't know how to make a friend, and so then they resulted to like hitting or taking the toy because they don't know how to ask to share or to play or to, all of that can stem from there. So think about the needs of the child and what their behavior is showing you. Let's look at some examples. So let's see this little boy. He's throwing a fit. It looks like it looks like maybe they were in a grocery store. His eyes are all red. It looks like he's screaming. I'm sure mom feels embarrassed because they're in public. And he is just making a scene. What do you think this child's needs are? What do you think he's communicating? Maybe that he wants to feel powerful. Maybe it's that he wanted a decision on what they were doing. Not always can they actually have a decision on what they're doing. You know, sometimes it's time to go outside. I can't leave one kid inside while it's time to go outside, right? But maybe they do. He needs to be seen or feel powerful. Maybe he wanted to explore. Maybe there was something on that aisle that he really wanted to see and he wanted to explore. Maybe he needed to feel respected. Or maybe it's a physical issue. Maybe he missed a nap time because they were at the grocery store. And or maybe he went potty in his pants and he's in the middle of potty training and now he's all wet and gross. I don't know. But the fit comes from one of those needs that they're expressing. Let's look at this next kiddo. He looks like he is upset. It looks like maybe he's fixing to hit let's say this is his teacher. Looks like maybe we got really upset over something. What do you think his need might be? What do you think that backstory is? Do you think maybe he needs to feels like he belongs? Maybe they're outside and he wanted to experiment and explore a little bit longer. Maybe he needs to be taught a skill to communicate his feelings or how to climb up to be able to go down on the slide the right way. Maybe he needs to feel loved or seen. Look at this last little baby. Look at that big lip. What do you think this child's needs are? In the bathtub. He's in the bathtub and he's got a big pouty lip and it looks like we're fixing to cry. Maybe we wanted to play with the bath toys. Maybe we wanted to bring a toy that is battery operated into the bath. I know my kids want to do that all the time. Cody's always wanting to bring one of his tractors or something in the bathtub, and I say, no, you can't bring the tractor in the bathtub. You have to use the bathtub toys in the bathtub. But he wants to really see what's going to happen if he puts that in there. Maybe it's a physical need. Maybe the water's too hot or too cold. Maybe we need to be taught a skill. Maybe he wants to put his head under the water and to swim, but that's not safe. And so maybe it's a need to know a skill. Or maybe it's to feel loved. Maybe that physical need is that it's bedtime and we're exhausted and maybe we're getting in bed a little too late and we're just so tired. That doesn't excuse the behavior. Having an understanding behind why the behavior is happening, that doesn't excuse the behavior. That doesn't mean that it's okay to throw a fit. It doesn't mean that it's okay to hit somebody. It doesn't mean that it's okay because there's a reason behind what's going on. That does not mean that it's excusable or that it's socially acceptable. But understanding it will help us to guide them in the right path. So we need to understand that first. So first, let's talk about what discipline and what training is not. Training is not giving threats. When I look at you train children by giving threats. If you don't do this, then this is going to happen, but you never follow through. Right? And you just continue to say that this was going to be the consequence, but it's never really the consequence. You're going to be grounded. You're never going to get to play in the home center or the block center ever again. They know that that's not true. You're not going to take away the home center and block center forever. You're going to be gone right after nap time, and there's going to be an afternoon teacher coming in there, and I'm going to get to play in the home center and the block center. They know when you don't mean it. As a 6th grade math teacher, I can start using sarcasm a little bit more because I have 6th graders. Preschoolers do not understand sarcasm, but junior high kids do. So when I used to teach upstairs, I would tell the kids, like, if you make a bad grade, I'm going to throw you out the window. And we were on the 2nd story. They knew I wasn't going to throw them out the window. That was sarcasm. But I see over and over again teachers in classrooms or parents choose to just give threat and threat and threat and threat and threat and threat and threat. And the child learns that nothing is ever going to happen. So it's very important to say what you mean and mean what you say. With that, then, sometimes the opposite of that would be, hey, I don't know what a good consequence is in this moment, so I'm just going to say there's going to be a consequence. And that gives me a little bit of time to think about what the right consequence would be for this action. You don't have to think about it necessarily in the moment when it just happened, because sometimes you can't always do that. But whatever you do not give empty threats over and over and over again. That's going to train a child to do the opposite, that I don't have to listen to you. The next thing that we're not going to do is, part of this negative training is going to be repeating things over and over and over again. So, when I told you before, the Bible says, train up a child in the way they shall go. And I think of my dog, Massey, who just got back from obedience training. And if when I went to pick her up and they said, okay, look, we did all of this work, we trained your dog, and then they go to show me, and they had to say, sit, Massey, Massey, sit, sit, Massey, Massey, I said sit, sit now, you better sit, sit, Massey, Massey, sit. And then she finally sat. Would that be trained? I don't think so. I feel like what I am expecting is for me to give a command to my dog and for her to obey the first time. Now, obviously, these children are not animals; they are not dogs. But it does say train up a child, and that does take work. And when we repeat things over and over and over and over and over again, then they learn that they don't actually have to listen. Just like that example with Massey, she doesn't actually have to listen until I go through all of that. You'll see this when a parent might come to pick up a child and says it's time to go, and they say, hold on just a second. Give me just 5 more minutes, And really the child then is training the parent that they need to wait on them, that they don't really have to listen the first time. And what does this look like then when I take a group of 15 children out on a field trip and I say, okay, stop. It is important that they stop the first time, that I don't have to say stop. I said stop. You need to stop. Stop right now, especially when we're in the parking lot. And then you multiply that by 15 children. That becomes a life or death situation. And so if I have trained the child that they don't actually have to listen until I've said something 100 times, then that's not really training them to listen and to obey, and eventually then that becomes a safety issue. The next thing is we train children to give excuses. I want you to think about this one a little bit, because when we train children to give excuses, we don't necessarily even realize that we're doing it. Every time I hear somebody say, when a child maybe did something wrong, then they say, why did you do that? When you say, why did you do that? You're asking a child to give an excuse for their behavior. And they feel like then that they need to come up with an excuse of why they did that behavior. We're training our children to give excuses. Rather than say, why did you do that? We should be asking a child, what did you do? What did you do asks them to take accountability and responsibility for their choices and for their behaviors, rather than to give me an excuse of why you did something. So that's kind of a number one pet peeve is asking a child, why did you do something? With this example, I think of Goose, once again, our former head of schools. And when she was little, then one day she went to Sunday school and she had a little sore on her ear, which, I mean, I would expect you to ask what happened, but she didn't know what it was from or why it was there or whatever. And the Sunday school teacher asked her, oh no, why did you do that? What happened? So she felt like, I need to come up with a story. I can't just not have a story. She's asking me a question. I have to have an answer to every question that somebody asks me. So she told the Sunday school teacher that my mother, Miss Green, had tried to pierce her ears the night before, that she tried to pierce her ears. That was not true, but the Sunday school teacher believed it hook, line, and sinker, and it was like, oh my goodness, why would she do that? And so she continued to answer questions and make up answers. And why? Because she felt like she needed an answer to everything. Now, sometimes, like I mentioned before, there are reasons of why somebody did hit somebody. Maybe they got upset. Maybe they knocked down their tower first. Maybe they said something mean. But first, we need to take accountability for our actions. First, we need to answer, what did you do? Do not train a child to give excuses. Also, telling is not training. When we look at, the Bible calls us to train, that's not telling. And so in all of these things, giving threats and repeating especially, then we're continuing to tell a child over and over and over again, and that's not really training. When I think about this, I think about a 2-year-old and potty training. And when we think about potty training, let's say then I'm going to tell them how this works. So I'm going to take this little 2-year-old that I want to potty train, and I'm going to say, okay, all right, sweetheart, so today we are going to be potty trained, and today what's going to happen is when you get the sensation in your bladder that it is full, and right here in your pelvic muscles, you'll feel this full sensation of your bladder. What you're going to do then is you're going to go to the restroom, and you are going to remove your articles of clothing. You're going to sit on this throne that we call the toilet, and you're going to alleviate your bladder by releasing the muscles, and all of your urination is going to come out into the toilet. You will see yourself being alleviated. At that point, you will stand up. You will clean yourself and wipe yourself with this toilet paper. You'll pull back up your pants, flush the toilet, and then you'll walk over here to the faucet where you'll turn on the water and wash with the soap and dry your hands. At that point, you will be done. Now, on the opposite end, when your bowels feel full, you will get a sensation in your rectal area that your bowels are full. And at that point, same thing, as you're going to go to the restroom and you are going to push your bowels out. Explaining all of that to a 2-year-old, does that make them now, ta-da, we're potty trained, right? No. There is no way that child is now potty trained. Training is, a part of it is telling, part of it is using your words, part of it is showing, part of it is teaching, part of it is making mistakes and having accidents and talking about what that feels like and what we're going to do next. There is a lot of things that go into actually training, right? So I want you to think about that. You want to have as many examples as possible in as many ways as possible. It takes 2,000 times for a child to understand that something is going to happen, that is a firm rule. So that means over and over again in their brain development, the same thing has to happen 2,000 times for them to believe that that is the rule and that is what's going to happen. So if one time in that you don't do what you say that you were going to do, you don't follow through, you do the opposite of what you were just told them, you have to start all back over at that beginning of that 2000. And that's why it's so frustrating. We feel like we have to say the same thing over and over and over again. They need to see that the rule applies over and over again in many different circumstances and situations. All right, I think this picture is hilarious. I don't know if any of you have ever seen Kindergarten Cop, but this picture of him the first day in kindergarten is screaming, the kids are crazy, the room is a disaster, right? And so in this negative training, then he went in and it was free reign for all of the children, and you're trying to go back in and you're trying to discipline in hindsight, right, after everything's going to happen. And so it went wild. It went crazy. They destroyed it. If you haven't seen that movie, I would highly recommend it. It's called Kindergarten Cop. But this negative training is training by default with inconsistent follow through. Every disobedience is an opportunity for training. And so I encourage you to look at it like that the disobedience is really an opportunity for training, for teaching, for guiding these children in a better way. So the opposite of that would be this preventative discipline. Preventative discipline, as you see here, where all of the kids are now marching in order, and he's got his whistle and they're singing their cadences, and he came in then after that and he was like, okay, this is the way we're going to do this. This is the way we're going to go on a fire drill. This is the way that we're going to line up. This is who's going to get the little class ferret, the class pet there. There was a right way to do everything. And that really does prevent so much chaos from happening. These children need to be taught and explained the right way to do everything, and there should be a right way to do everything. And if you do not do that, then you're going to end up on the opposite of this, because then they're going to get in trouble, but you never necessarily explained what the right way to do it was. So what I'm talking about is, for instance, let's say a child washing their hands. When a child's washing their hands, rather than yelling at them afterwards for using 1,000 pumps of soap and making a huge mess all over the sink, did you do preventative discipline? Did you teach the class the right way to wash their hands? So on the very first day of school and a few days afterwards, and then occasionally throughout the school year, I'm going to teach the children. We're going to go over to the sink and I'm going to be washing my hands, and I'm going to be showing them, not just telling them, but I'm going to be showing them. All right, we get 1 pump of soap. How many pumps do we get? And I'm going to be asking as well. How many pumps do we get? One pump of soap. How many napkins do we get? Where do we put the napkins? All of those things I'm going to be teaching ahead of time. So in the rears, I don't have to go back and to discipline afterwards. And that's called preventative discipline. Another good way we can think of as preventative discipline is you think of a child, maybe a child that bites. And they know that every single time that you get behind a changing table and you start changing diapers, that you're nowhere near. And they know when you're behind a piece of furniture. That's why I encourage you to walk around the classroom. But there's sometimes, like changing diapers, you can't be walking around the classroom while you're changing diapers. But they know that you're all the way over there and that you can't stop it. And that's when that opportunity to bite comes in. So preventative discipline might be the child didn't get in trouble yet, nothing has happened yet, but taking that biter and taking them on the other side of that baby gate, taking them with you, putting them in a high chair with a toy or something like that, having them on an activity, focused on something else in a spot where they're not near the other children that they typically bite whenever you're behind a changing table. That could be preventative discipline. It can be, preventative discipline can be things like classroom arrangement. Let's say in your classroom arrangement, you have 2 toy shelves in your class, along with, all of your academic shelves, your practical life shelf, your science shelf, your math shelf, your reading shelf, things like that. But there's 2 toy shelves. And so when it comes time to play off the toy shelves, then you have them placed together in the corner of the room like this. So when you say, okay, everybody go get a toy off the toy shelves, everybody then runs over to that toy shelves. We're throwing elbows. There's, knockdown, drag out fights over who gets the very new My Little Pony that just got out that's new on the toy shelves. That's not a great idea. What are all the mistakes that I made in that situation? One was my classroom arrangement, right? Is that maybe I should definitely be putting my toy shelves on opposite sides of the classroom. That divides the class right there in half. When it's time to go get toy shelves, it divides them in half, and I'll have half going to this side and half going to the other side. What's the other thing I could have done? That's right, I shouldn't have said, everybody go, right? I should have released which table was sitting the right way. I would have said, oh, I'm looking for who's sitting the right way. Oh, I see the blue table is sitting the right way. You may go pick out a toy. Oh, the red table is sitting the right way. And I guarantee you the tables that weren't sitting the right way, what are they going to do? They're going to sit up and they're going to sit the right way so that they can be called to go get their toys. So noticing who is sitting the right way. Those are things that we can do to prevent discipline problems. And looking at your classroom arrangement, looking at how you're calling kids to be able to go somewhere, looking at where problem areas might occur. Maybe even looking at times of the day. Man, why is it all the time that during this specific part of my day, it becomes really chaotic? If you can't figure it out, ask me, ask another seasoned teacher to see if they can help you to troubleshoot, hey, maybe that's something that we can tweak. And all of a sudden, maybe your problems might go away. But as many things as possible, then you're going to prevent and prepare your children for. I think of this too, picture day. Oftentimes picture day is a chaotic day, right? As we're grabbing children from everywhere. There's sibling pictures, there's class pictures, everybody's having to smile. We're making sure everybody's in their right clothes. But the teacher's really focused on the kids that are taking the picture. The photographer is focused on that, which means all of these other children are kind of being ignored and they're bored and they're left up to themselves. And when children are left up to their own, they're going to find something to do, and it's not going to be what you would choose for them to do. So what's something, picture day is coming up. What's something you can do to have some preventative discipline so that when you get into the gym to take your pictures and your class is supposed to be sitting there silently for 30 minutes? Is that a realistic expectation of a 3, 4-year-olds, 2-year-olds? No, it's not. So bring something, be prepared with songs, be prepared with something you can do. Talk to the children ahead of time about what the expectations are going to be, what's going to happen, what is a photographer, what am I going to expect you to do when you get on that stage, what does your smile look like? Talk to them about all of those things. I guarantee you it will run 1,000 times smoother if you're able to prepare them. Prepare them for fire drills. Prepare them for unexpected delays. Prepare yourself for unexpected delays. What if lunch is late and all of a sudden, now you don't want to get everything out again because it's going to be here in 5 minutes, but 5 minutes is a really long time in a classroom. 5 minutes, a lot can happen in 5 minutes. So you need to have some tools in your tool belt to prepare for those things. And as much as possible, you need to prepare your children. You need to prepare yourself for things that might happen outside of your normal daily routine. And definitely during your normal daily routine, think about every single part of the day and what your expectations are and what they should be doing. So that was a lot on have a correct way to do everything. I mentioned a little bit about being organized and well prepared. And that's what I'm saying is even if there's a delay, even if there's something that's not as expected, then you need to be organized and well prepared and have something for them to be able to do. Be creative, have them play a game. You don't even have to have necessarily something physical, tangible. But it could be as easy as getting on your hands and knees and crawling and pretending like you're a cat now in the hallway as we go by, and you're a mouse. That you're a mouse in the hallway and that the office is the cat, and we have to be so super quiet when we sneak by the office, so we're going to crawl That helps their and motor development to be able to crawl. But it also keeps them busy and entertained and coming up with those silly little things for them to be able to do. Being organized and well prepared, that can also be things like in circle time, having all of your flashcards ready to go for the next thing. If you have to take a long time to figure out where your next thing is, what the next thing is doing, you're losing every single person's attention. Each of those children's attention is going to be distracted. They're going to be touching their friends. Unless you are ready to go, it should go from shapes. It should go from shapes to numbers, to counting, to Pledge of Allegiance, to whatever it is that your routine is in the order that you do it. There should not be a second downtime, because that's when discipline issues occur. And you need to be ready and to be entertaining. Be enthusiastic, pleasant, and positive. Same thing with that, is that in circle time, I don't want to listen to the Charlie Brown teacher that is want, 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 want. You have to be exciting. You're putting on a drama performance practically for these kiddos every single day. If you're reading a book, let's say, to them, if I'm making voices as I'm reading the book for the grandma and for grandpa, that's going to be a lot more entertaining than if I'm reading everything in monotone, in the same voice the entire time. You're not going to want to listen to that. You're going to fall asleep. So neither do they. They want to be entertained. And I know that's hard, especially with today's kids who are always entertained and they have screens, 24/7 access to them. But you have to be pleasant. You have to be energetic. You have to be positive. Or else they're not going to be focusing and paying attention on you, in which case they will get in trouble. All right, so preventative discipline, as many things as possible. Set yourself up for success before you even get in the situation. Okay, so what negative behaviors are you seeing in your classroom? I want you to take a second and think about it. Maybe you're a new hire and you've just been observing in some classrooms. I want you to think about that for a second. Think about some undesirable behaviors that you've seen in the classrooms, and what are some things that you can do to prevent that? Take a minute real quick and either have a conversation about that, or maybe write it down if you're doing this by yourself. Write down maybe what you have seen and some ideas for preventing those behaviors. Maybe it's calling every child up individually to line up to go outside. Maybe it's giving a 5-minute warning before it's time to clean up so that they can prepare themselves, or setting a timer or a clock to let them know, hey, we're fixing to have to be cleaning up. Prepare yourself for that. Maybe you're having problems with every time the parents are coming to pick up their kiddo, that they are training the parents to wait for them. And so then you want to prevent this big drop down, fight, meltdown, or whatever when mom and dad come to pick up. So you want to talk about that in circle time, ahead of time, of what do I expect you to do when your mom comes to the door? Maybe let's say you have a lot of staff kids, and every time that they see mom walk by the hallway, then they throw a fit and they get really sad because they want to be with mom and it's really hard to see her. So maybe having a conversation, what can I do ahead of time to help this child to go through those feelings? Maybe maybe it's like I said before, maybe it's that we need to be more prepared in that circle time so we don't lose their attention. And so I just need to go faster so I can keep them together. Or maybe it's that our stuff isn't prepared and organized, and every time I go to do an art project, then I'm losing them because I don't have all of the stuff prepped and ready, and all of my arts and my paints or whatever it is that I'm doing out and ready to go, and I need to do a lot more prep on the front end of things. Making sure you have detailed lesson plans that say exactly what you're going to do, and thinking about all of these things ahead of time is going to be very, very helpful. So I encourage you to look at that. I encourage you to prevent as many things as possible, because then you don't even have to move into the second phase of going through these disciplinary actions and exactly how we should address them, because you prevented the behavior from ever happening. And that is what we call a win-win. You don't even have to get to that point, because you set up an environment that was helpful for the child to be able to get what they need, to be able to do what they need, talking about those, like I said, behaviors ahead of time. So think about that. All right, so we've spent a lot of time talking about what not to do. That negative training, training by default, giving threats. And now I want to talk about, how are we going to discipline? What is the right thing to do? Because I can't just tell you don't do that. I need to tell you what the right thing to do is. So positive discipline, that is what we want to do. We want to do positive discipline. And there's a lot of different ways and tools for your tool belt that you can use to have positive discipline in your classroom. The first one that we have listed here is praising those who are behaving. In one of my examples earlier, I mentioned about when I released everyone to go to the toy shelves. But after that, I said maybe what we should do is call each table. And then I mentioned that we should say, oh, I'm looking for who's sitting the right way, who's behaving the way I wanted to. That is going to be positive discipline. With praising those who are behavior, if I said, oh my goodness, Susie, you are sitting the right way, you are making good choices, thank you so much for doing that, rather than yelling at everybody else, finding one child that is doing what I want them to do and focusing on them and giving attention and praise to them, what is everybody else going to do? They're going to sit up and they're going to do whatever it is that I'm praising Susie on doing. Oftentimes, these children that are misbehaving because of a need to have attention and to feel loved, that they have learned that is how I get attention. That is how I feel loved. Even negative attention is better than no attention. Oftentimes, this helps with those kiddos because they want the attention, and so far they have just learned that the only way to get the teacher's undivided attention is to be bad, to make poor choices, and then she comes and she talks to me and I have her undivided attention. So sometimes it is ignoring the bad behavior and really focusing on those who are making your good choices. And that way they're getting the reward of your attention and your focus. And it makes everybody else want to do the same thing. You'll have them, oh, I was. And I was like, oh, nope, you're yelling right now. You're screaming at me. That's not what I ask you to do. I'm looking for somebody who's quiet, is what I would say there, because they're going to want to point out that they were doing that too. So we're going to praise those who are behaving. Let's think about other ways that we can praise those that are behaving. Maybe in circle time, pointing out somebody that did something really nice. I saw Johnny on the bike track give up a bicycle for his friend. And that was really kind because he worked really hard and he was sitting really nice in his seat. And so he got to be the front of the line and he ran over there the fastest and he got on that and he was kind. Seeing somebody who helped pick up something and just really mentioning and making those positive things that you're seeing, making them a really, really, really big deal. When they open the door for you, oh my goodness, that is the nicest, kindest, sweetest thing that they've ever done. You have to make a huge, big deal about the good stuff and publicly praise them and give affection and give love, and it makes them be seen and really understand. That positive discipline really goes a lot way in praising those who are behaving and making good choices. Be consistent. That's going to be the opposite of what I was saying through with those inconsistent follow-throughs before and that giving threats, right? The opposite of that is being consistent. Say what you're going to say, do what you said you were going to do, the same thing every single solitary time. Once again, that kids have to learn things 2,000 times, hear things 2,000 times. That has to be the rule 2,000 times before they believe that that's the rule. And you need to be consistent every single time. If one day we do this and the next day we do it like this and the next day we do it like that. Okay, so making sure that you are consistent every single time. If that is the rule for one child, it's the rule for the other child. If that is the consequence, then that is the consequence. And they need to know that. Walk around the room. I cannot say this one enough. Walk around the room, walk around the room, walk around the room. Children know when you are stationary. Children know where you can't see them. Children know when a piece of furniture is between us. They know, and they will act differently. My example was with this one is, once again, one of these stories that Goose told me before she passed away, was that when she was a little girl, that her mom was cooking dinner, Mrs. Green, Suzanne Green, our founder. She was cooking dinner, and Goose was over there jumping on the couch, jumping on the couch, jumping on the couch, jumping on the couch. And her mom, my grandma, said, "Get down, get off the couch, get off the couch." And kept yelling at her and kept yelling at her. But Goose knew that as long as she was over there and she was cooking and she had her hands full, that all that was going to be was a whole bunch of telling her. What do you think happened the moment that she put down that spoon and she went around from that kitchen island and she came on the other side of that kitchen island? When do you think it was that Goose got off the couch? Yeah, whenever she got up and walked over there. That meant that she meant business. That means you need to obey now. The other stuff, it didn't really mean anything. And the kids know that too. If the kids know that you're not going to get off your butt and get around and go to them, they're going to test you. They're not going to obey. You have to get up and you have to go to them. Also, what looks better as a parent crossing our hallways is somebody constantly sitting in a chair and screaming across the classroom, "Stop doing that, stop doing that, you need to stop doing that," and managing from across the classroom, versus getting up, going to their level, getting down on their level and talking to them. I guarantee you it means a lot more if I go to you and I get down on your level and I talk to you. It means a lot more, and it looks a lot better too. You're not screaming across the classroom. The child's going to believe that you mean what you say, and what you say what you mean. Typically when I do this in-person conversation, then I go to a teacher and I get down and on their level and near them, and I say, "I said you may not talk like that." I guarantee you that meant a lot more than me yelling across the room. You need to get up and walk around that classroom. Same thing with outside even more so. Supervision, and I'll have a whole nother training on supervision and outdoor safety and things. But if you are always standing in the same spot and you are not walking around that playground, that is not okay. That is neglect to supervise. So it prevents accidents from happening. It prevents all of these disciplinary things. You look better. You can say the same thing. And honestly, your tone means a lot more when you are quieter and you are with them and have eye contact than when you're screaming across the room. So walk around the room. Have continuous involvement. So that means you need to be focusing on the kids, having conversations with them. Same thing with walking around, not just walking around, but being involved with them. We're Texas Rising Star, 4-star, the highest level. And a huge part of that grading system is teacher-child interactions. That means how much do you talk with the kids? How much do you interact with them? It is important to have continuous involvement with them all the time. Like, you should be sick of your own voice because you are continuously talking with the children and involved with them. Circulate. I don't know, I could say the same thing in a lot of different ways apparently. I can have continuous involvement, circulate, walk around the room. It's 3 different ways to say walk around the room, be involved, be up and around, and it's beyond important. Intervene before problems break out. So you can't intervene before problems break out if you're not walking around the room, having continuous involvement, and circulating the classroom. You can't do that because you won't know, you won't see it. If so, beforehand, you can see, hey, I can see that so-and-so, the tensions are getting higher, feelings are escalating. I can talk them through this, and I can help them through this. You should be able to know. You should be able to know, hey, these 2 kids, they're like oil and water. They don't really get along well, but today they're wanting to play in the home center today. I want to give them a chance, but I'm going to be right there, and I'm going to be listening to what's going on and trying to help to mediate some of those problems before they really get rough. Give lots of hugs, physical touch, patting. It is so important when we look at kids' love language, then they have the same love languages as adults. And if you want to know what a kid's love language is, I would encourage you to look at how they treat you. Are they maybe coloring you a sheet of a color sheet every day and giving it to you? Maybe that kid's is gifts. Maybe the kid that always wants a hug and is constantly hanging on you, and you're like, it is too hot here in Texas for you to be on me on this playground. Get away from me. Stop touching you. That kid's probably, their love language is physical touch, and they need hugs, and they need to feel loved, and they need to feel, they need those high fives, all of that. Maybe you have the kid that as soon as you drop something, they're like, over there, and they're going to pick it all up for you and do that. Maybe that kid's love language is going to be acts of service. They need to be spoken to in their own love language. And so I challenge you to think about each and every child in your classroom and what their love language is and how you can speak that to them to make them feel loved. But you're going to give them lots of hugs, physical touch, patting. Patting would be maybe at nap time we're having a hard time and we're having a hard time falling asleep. And so I encourage you to get over there and to pat and to rub their back. It could be as simple, though, with positive discipline. It could be as simple as walking over and having your hand on a child's shoulder while you're giving instructions. Just reminding them, hey, I'm right here. You need to listen, and just that physical proximity is important. Giving instructions in a positive manner. Okay, so this is saying, for instance, instead of saying, don't run, we're going to say, use your walking feet. And there's many reasons for this, as far as what researchers have studied and found out. One of those, some of the most simple ideas, is that when you say, don't run, the only thing different in between don't run and do run is a nt. Like literally, it's just an N apostrophe T. Nt. Do you think a child that's beginning to learn language is going to get that don't run, the difference in between don't run and do run, that nt means therefore to do the opposite of. Therefore, I should not run and I should do the opposite of running, which would be walking. Maybe not. Maybe that's not the best way to communicate to them what you would like for them to do. Instead of saying what you shouldn't do, as much as possible, you should tell them what you want them to do. Also in their brains, for instance, if I say, don't think about elephants right now. What are you thinking about? Elephants. You're thinking about elephants because I said don't think about elephants. If I say don't run, what is the thing that's in the child's head? Running. Running is in the child's head. As opposed to if I said use your walking feet, What's the word that's stuck in their head? Walking. Walking is in their head. So we want to give the word and have the word in their head that we want for them to do. So that can be things like use your inside voice. We're going to say use your inside voice instead of don't yell. Certainly not shut up. But we're going to tell them to use your inside voice. We're going to use our outside voice outside, and we can use our inside voice inside. Or I want you to be silent right now. And the difference in between using our inside voice and silent are two different things. And we should be preventative discipline, teaching them the difference before we get into that situation. As many things as possible, you're going to think about the action that you want for them to do. And you're going to use the action that you do want for them to do when you're giving your rules, when you're giving your instructions. There are some things when you can't get away from it. And it is okay to tell a child no. For instance, if a child is biting, I would say, no bite. You may not bite. I'm still going to use my positive instructions because I'm going to say you can use your teeth for chewing food. You can use your teeth for talking, for singing, but you may not bite. So it is okay to tell a child no, but as in many things as possible, you're going to want to rephrase that to what you do want them to do rather than what they shouldn't do. All right, earlier we talked about giving a choice a little bit. Here's another thing. Do not give a choice when there isn't one. We mentioned before, what color scissors do you want? Oh, I want the pink ones. Well, I don't have pink ones. But giving a choice would be like, okay, do you guys want to go outside? I'm sorry, but on the schedule, it says it's time for outside time. You don't really have a choice of whether or not what your outside time is. I have a whole playground of rotating schedules, and everybody has their specific time spot, and it's important that you're there for your time spot so that the next person can have their outside time. And it's not okay to choose what time it is. So you're not going to ask, does everybody want to go outside? It's time to go outside. Do not give a choice when there is one. On the opposite side of that, do give choices when there is a choice. Have them be able to make a choice in as many things as they possibly can, but don't give a choice when there isn't one. And then same thing with like asking, oh, is that okay? I hear that a lot, like, oh, it's time to go outside, okay? With like a question mark sound on the end of it. But we're not really asking them if it's okay. That's not a choice. So don't give them a choice if there isn't one. The last thing on this positive discipline part is to ring the bell. You'll notice that in our logo here on this slide, that it has the cross, the feet print, and then right in the front and the center it has the bell. And the reason for that is that we use it every single day in the classroom, and we teach these children what it means. Now, I know that it is trendy and it is hot and it is new to have 1,000 different attention getters and things like that, like waterfall, shh, and have everybody say shh, or the clapping and the clap back, or the shark bait and then everybody say ooh ha ha, or all of those little things that we see on social media. Those are great and wonderful. It's not that you can't use those, but you also have to teach how to respond to a bell, because there are some things that are consistent across the board from beginning to end, from top to bottom, from that we are going to keep consistent, and they are who we are. And part of this is this discipline and guidance and the symbolism of the bell. Wish I had a bell with me, but what we're going to do is you're going to ring the bell one time. Actually, hold on just a second. We're going to pause it real quick, and I'm going to go get a bell so I can explain. Okay, so I'm back and I got a bell. All right, so when we are mentioned all the importance of the bell and consistency, but it teaches them that they need to be quiet, silent, rather than saying, everybody, be quiet. I said be quiet. You should be able to walk into a classroom and to ring a bell, and for the kids to stop, look, and listen. With that then, typically I have them do something with their hands so that when they stop, that their hands aren't touching whatever it is that they were doing. So typically what I have them do is put one hand on top of their head and one finger on their mouth. Some of the kids will do that. That's fine with me too, to put a hand in the air and one on their mouth, reminding them my mouth is supposed to be silent and both hands should be stopping doing whatever I was doing before. So let's talk about what the bell ringing should look like. It should not be rung like a cowbell. That does not signify, that is the same as screaming across the classroom, be quiet, everybody. That is not okay. It should be once very quietly. These kind of bells, we have some bells that are like on the slideshow here, that the bell in the middle of it is just free form and it kind of rings a little bit easier. And then these are like hand bells and they have a spring in it. And so kind of just practice with it, but I mean, it should just be one time like that. One time. You should ring the bell one time. Some of the other ones, you'll hold it like this and you'll just very lightly ding it. But you see with this one with the spring in it, it doesn't even hit it when I do that. So that was one time. And when I ring it once, everybody should stop, look, and listen. And their hands should go one finger on top of their mouth and one in the air or on top of their head. With that then, once again, you're going to have to train your class how to do this. Meaning, I'm going to talk to them, I'm going to tell them what my expectations are, and then we're going to practice doing it. So I'm going to say, okay, everybody, work ready, and then I'll ring the bell one time. Oh, I saw that Zoe and David, they listened the first time, good job. Oh, but I saw other people, it took a little bit too long to stop your conversations and to stop, look, and listen. So let's practice again. Let's see who can do it. Maybe I'm passing out now stickers or stamps, or at the end of the week, whoever does this the best is going to get treasure box if we can all learn how to listen to the bell the right way. It should get so good that even if I don't have a bell, I should be able to ring my imaginary bell. And with that, you'll probably have just a couple that will see you ring your imaginary bell because it won't have a sound. And they'll stop and they'll look, and then we'll start catching everybody else's attention until everybody is able to notice that my imaginary bell has rung. This is across the board, so I should be able to go into any classroom and to be able to have a uniform way to get every single child's attention and to draw attention back up to what maybe I'm giving instructions and letting them know something's fixing to happen, we're fixing to clean up, whatever it may be. But I should be able to walk into every single classroom and be able to ring the bell and for them to be able to know. Obviously not infants, but within age appropriate, then the kids should know what the bell means to stop, look, and listen. All right. Do not ring the bell like that, okay? If I hear that, because I will hear it from across the school, I will come running. I'll be like, what are you doing? Another great way to get kiddos' attention and to bring everybody back together and to get the focus on you is to sing a song. So if maybe it has to do with the instructions of what you're asking for them to do. So it could be, go in and have a seat, go in and have a seat, go in, go in, go in, go in, go in and have a seat. And they're thinking of, and they're telling themselves over and over again what they're supposed to be doing as they're singing the song. But it could be just as easy as getting everybody's attention and getting the focus back on you as the teacher. It's a great classroom management tool. Just to start singing, you know, Jesus loves me, this I know. They will start singing with you, and it unifies the classroom where everybody was doing individual activities and off on their own. Then all of a sudden that unites a classroom. Singing a song can also help you with classroom management and circle time. especially a movement song. Maybe we've been sitting for a really long time and our attention span is wearing out, so I'm going to sing the Grand Old Duke of York. He had 10,000 men. He marched them up to the top of the hill and he marched them down again. And I'm going to have them march all the way up to the top of the hill. Stand up, go all the way up, and then go all the way down. So when you're up, you're up. And when you're down, you're down. And when you're only halfway up, you're neither up nor down. And I'm going to have them do all of the hand motions. And we're going to jump up and down each of those times. And then we're going to sit back down. And I'm probably going to get another 10 minutes out of that circle time because I had them sing a song and do some hand motions and get out some wiggles. All right, so let's talk about ways to discipline. Of course, we want to prevent as many things as possible, but now we're in a situation and we need to have a discussion with one of our friends. Ways to discipline would be lower your voice. If we're talking about an entire classroom, they can always be louder than you, but they're nosy. So a wonderful way to get voices to lower is just start to whisper to somebody. Say, Johnny, I like the way you're sitting. And so you are making such good choices right now that when we go outside, I'm going to give you a special treat and you're going to be my friend and you're going to be, when we play Duck, Duck, Goose, you're going to get to be it first and it's going to be so awesome and so fun. I guarantee you, if I'm whispering to a kid, every other voice in that room is going to get quiet because they're nosy and they want to hear what I'm fixing to say. It's a great tool. I encourage you so much to use it. Test it over and over again. When you whisper, they know that there's a secret and they want to hear. So lower your voice. The look. Right? The mom look. You've all received the look. You probably already have given the look. But most of the time, if I'm teaching class, for instance, and this works even in junior high, is if I stop talking and I look at you, you know that means to stop what you're doing. Kiddos understand this too. At a certain age, 3, 4, 2 is a little less obvious, probably needs to not just come with a look, but probably needs some verbal too. But there's a lot of times that just giving the look will suffice. Whispering to those who are making good choices, I mentioned that just a second ago. Point. So that would be like, no. And some of these things, the nonverbal things that we're doing, especially like I said before, about the children that are acting out because they want your attention and they want the focus to be on them, maybe removing the verbal point and the verbal part and just having a physical gesture where you're able to signal to them what your expectations are. Having them stand. A lot of times if we can't sit the right way in our chair, for instance, then we need to be removed of the privilege of having a chair. We can just stand. If we're going to not use it the right way, then we don't get it. Having them place their head down on their desk, holding their hand. Oftentimes I talk with my hands, or I need my hands to be doing something, so sometimes I'll have them hold my pocket is what I'll have them do, and that way I still have access to my hands and it's not, but just have them right here and holding my pocket. Moving the chair back from the group. This can be, for instance, in circle time, you have all the children lined up. The first step I would just have them do is just move it a little bit back where it's not where they're in direct line, especially if they're having problems keeping their hands to themselves, possibly setting their chair back off of the rug, but still facing it, still, just right out of the line. Helps them to be able to have enough distance to be able to be successful during circle. After that doesn't work though, then I'm going to move them back to their table and say, okay, you need to move your chair back to the table. Moving a child beside you, oftentimes, like I said before, over and over again, with the moving around and everything like that, with you guys being up and walking, having a child in close proximity of you can often help them to make the desired choices that you'd like for them to. It's kind of like me as a boss when I go around and go into a classroom. All of my teachers do what they're supposed to do because the boss is watching. The kids do the same thing with you, right? Is that if the teacher's watching, we're going to do the right thing. And so being really close to you. Depriving a child of a privilege that relates to the misbehavior. So relating to the misbehavior, that doesn't mean that something happened at in the breakfast room at 7 a.m. and then after lunch, then they are missing, or right before lunch, they're missing their outside recess time. That's not okay. One, it doesn't relate to the misbehavior. And two, those kids probably are the ones that the most need to get out their physical stored up energy, right? That's a punishment to you. If you have a problem with this, come and ask me, and I'll be happy to help you with some of the things I mentioned earlier. You could even just say you will have a consequence, but it should relate to the behavior. And what does that mean? That means like if we're having a hard time sitting with all four legs of our chair on the ground, then I'm sorry, you'll need to stand. If you're having a hard time keeping your hands to yourself, then maybe you'll need to play by yourself. You'll lose the opportunity of playing with a friend for a little bit. Maybe that is we made a big mess and we need to clean it up. It's your job to clean up that mess that you made. You made a big mess in the bathroom, within reason, then they're coming in there with me and they're helping me clean up what they did. Or even maybe they have to tidy the shelves or fix something. That is all going to be appropriate for them to have the consequence. Maybe they messed something up and they need to get a water and wash rag and wipe down the tables that they colored all on and clean those off. Then it should relate to that. The privilege that the child's being deprived of should relate to the misbehavior. All right, we're going to get down on their level. We're going to go over to them. We're going to get down on their level. And so then it is eye to eye, face to face contact. That makes a huge difference in what we are saying and the impact that we are having. You have to get down on their level. All right, little tips and tricks. Open hands are for guiding and teaching. Closed hands are for emergencies. When we are disciplining, anytime really during the classroom, right? If I am showing, if I am teaching, I have open hands. If I am helping a child to go over to pick something up, I might guide them over. I have open hands, and those are for guiding and for teaching. If ever I have to close my hands like this, that would be only in case of emergencies. And that means a child is going out into the street on a field trip and I told them to stop. In that case, you bet your bottom dollar I am grabbing that child's hand and preventing them from walking into the street. Those are going to be emergency situations where we would have to ever close, grab a child. That would be to prevent safety issues only. Open hands are for guiding and teaching. Closed hands are for emergencies. Okay, so steps for corrections. I talked a little bit about what the consequences should be, and there should be consequences for major infractions, major disciplinary issues. But the steps for correction, I want you to say these words. I mentioned before that you should not say, why did you do it? Why did you do that? We're training them to give an excuse for the behavior rather than to take accountability. So what do I want you to say? I want you to go through these words, steps for correction. You're first going to go to the child to get down on their level, not from across the room, on their level. And you're going to say, what have you done? What did you do? And we're asking them then to take accountability for their actions. What have you done? At this point, they're going to try to tell you, but he did this, but they did this. And I'm like, no. What did you do? Again, but she did this and he did that and I. No, but what did you do? If they can't answer what did you do, then I'm going to tell them, you hit, you, whatever it is that they did. I'm going to give them the answer and then I'm going to ask again. What did you do? Until that they can do that. If they're not ready to do that, I'm going to give them a minute. I'm going to say, sounds like you need some more time to think about that. And I'm going to walk away for a minute. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to see if they can answer, but what did you do? The next thing I'm going to ask them is, what is the rule? Remember that the rule should be formed in a positive way as much as possible. So the rule is we use our walking feet, we use kind hands, we use kind words, we are respectful to others, we are all of the things that they should be doing. If they can't answer what is the rule after I ask, then I'm going to tell them the rule is we use kind hands. And then I'm going to ask again, what is the rule? And I'm going to have them do that until that they can repeat it to me and tell me what the rule is. Then I'll move on to the next step. What should have you done? This is an opportunity for us to really evaluate and for them to see, okay, yes, he knocked down my tower of blocks. What should have I done? It's okay that you got angry. It's okay that you're frustrated. It's okay that you had big feelings. It's okay. All of those feelings are okay. The feelings aren't what's wrong. It's what you did with those feelings. You chose to then hit, and that's not okay. So I'm going to talk to them about what they should have done instead. Had they gone and told the teacher that he knocked down the blocks, then the other kid would be the one in trouble and not you. Had you used your words, had you taken a big deep breath and counted to 10 before you did that, and give them some tools that they can use to self-regulate, to calm down, to get help in those situations. What should have we done instead? And that's really where we're looking for an opportunity for change and improvement and helping them to imagine a situation where they handled it the right way and going back there. The last step after asking what have you done, what is the rule, and what should you have done is going to be the child should know that he or she is forgiven. Once again, our top priority is to show that Christ-like love to each of these children, and we forgive because Christ forgave us. So if he held every single sin that we did against us, like, man, I know I'm not worthy. I know that God has given me grace and I don't deserve it, and forgiveness and love. And they need to know the same through us, is that they need to be genuinely forgiven. And that helps us to apply biblical truths and biblical principles to our steps to correction. Because at the end of it, we need to repair. They need to know that they are, that we're going to move on, right? So I get a lot of questions oftentimes about what does that mean then if they are forgiven, how do we talk to parents? And I would say this: if the child accepts correction and we move through these steps to correction and we accept correction, then I expect kids to make 1,000 mistakes a day. And if I took all of their transgressions and wrote them down, and the parents were to pick up and I was to give them a list of every single thing that they did wrong, one, that wouldn't be okay for the child, and two, the parent, like, that's exhausting too as a mom. They're gonna make mistakes. They're 3, they're 4, they're 2. They're gonna make mistakes. We make mistakes, and I'm a grown adult. So after they're forgiven, then it's gone. With the exception of if things escalate, if we do not accept correction, if we are having continuing misbehavior, then that's something we do need to be talking to parents about. We also need to be talking to the office about it. So the office and the administration should know what's going on too. You shouldn't have to do that alone or by yourself. So if there's problems, then we need to be involving the office and then likewise involving the parents and stuff. But for your for your minor little make mistakes, have a conversation about accepting correction, then we're forgiven and we're done. All right, questions and answers. So obviously this part of my presentation, we don't have a live audience, but I encourage you to, if you have questions, then if there's something that I didn't answer, if there's something that you still need to know, what about this situation, or what about this specific child, or what about this specific parent, then you need to get those answers, those questions answered. You need to seek out answers to that, whether it be from me or other office and administration or from other seasoned teachers. Then find out your answers so that you can do better and you can do your very best. Thank you so much for joining me today, and God bless.